Hello, 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 and welcome to another Scoutcast, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you are joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode. We've got two reds and we've got a green on the show for us tonight, but we are, as always, joined by the ever-lovable duo of Nacho and Hibbo. Nacho, how's it going, my man? Good week?
Yeah, doing well, mate. General life, good. FPL, good. Green arrow. I always say it. I'm never happy unless we've got three green arrows on this podcast. But if someone's going to have a green arrow, obviously from a selfish perspective, I'm glad it's me. But all in all, yeah, not too bad, really. We spoke about this before the pod. Loads to talk about here. So
Yeah.
it feels like a really, really big pod, this one. So hopefully we can offer some value today.
Yeah, my target is to try and keep this to an hour and 15 minutes, but I don't think we're going to be able to because there's literally so much to talk about. Sometimes I set up the pod and I'm like, oh, do you know what? We've got our normal stuff in there, but it's quite an easy week to sort out. This week, there was so much stuff I was setting up and I was thinking, my God, I want to talk about this, talk about this. There's so many decisions to be made at the moment. Hibbo, glad we've got you on here to talk about some of the decisions we need to make. A red arrow, but how are you feeling?
Feeling okay. This is kind of like the special Halloween edition of Scoutcast, but we haven't done anything particularly special, and it isn't really Halloween themed. But happy Halloween day! Happy Halloween to everybody who enjoys it. But no, it was okay week for me in fantasy. It looked like a nailed on Green Arrow before Mickey Van de Ven decided to shit 20 points. 23 points against Everton. But no, I think I agree with yourself and Nacho. There's lots to discuss this week. Recent weeks we've seen options starting to put up their hand, like Brian and Bumo. There's discussion to be had around Arsenal and what's the best trio, because recent weeks people are thinking, is it wise to triple in defence as opposed to having an attacker and stuff like that. So no, loads to go through, and as always we'll go through the nice data tables and maybe take some learnings that we can put under use from Gameweek 10 and on.
Yeah. And thank you so much for the people that are in the chat that are already there for us as well. We've got Paul, we've got FPL Tiger, we've got FPL Toff, Greg Frost, who's always in there for us. Thank you very much. We've got Stephen Randall, who's saying, how is Andy on a red arrow? That can't be right. I know, I do get them every now and again, even at my lowly rank. Obviously, Hibbo's already mentioned my nemesis of the week, but I will be talking about that in a second when we go through our points. We've also got XGI and CBIT tables to have a look at. We've also gotten some interesting things about double-digit hauls based on positions for players, because we're going to be talking about that after our points, because there's some interesting discussion there. We've also got the XA and XG due tables, so which players are due to get returns, because at the moment they're definitely underperforming based on their XGI so far. We've got some projections, we've got goal projections, we've got fixtures, especially looking at a certain Crystal Palace team who I've got a lot of fixtures coming up soon and not a very big squad. We've got some com teams, we've got the bus teams, and we've got a Q&A as well. So as you can see just from my rundown of what we're doing tonight, we've got a lot to talk about. So let's have a look at the points and maybe not dwell on these for too long, apart from maybe Nacho. So I had 44 points this week and a red arrow of about 100k. So I had Raya in goal with Gabriel. 15 points between them. Gabriel could have had more from what we were thinking that he got an assist, but obviously didn't. He also hit the crossbar, so there was even more points from Gabriel there. Talk about captaincy next week. We'll talk about that maybe later. Senesi with 5 got booked. Tarkowski got 1 point. 3-0 loss at home to Spurs. I saw that being an Everton 1-0 win, so for me, obviously 1 point from Tarkowski there. We won't talk about the player who was playing opposite him. Semenyo with 3, Bruno Fernandes with 4, could have been more. Reinders with 1, who has been an absolute nightmare of an own since he was the golden boy for the first 3 weeks. Saka with 3, Pedro with 2, Krupi Jr. with 6 points, and then Haaland captain blank with only 4. My moves this week were Gyökeres and Stack out for Krupi Jr. and Saka, which, to be honest, turned out to be quite good moves. I was quite happy with that. The thing that didn't work so well, the week after playing my bench boost, was Dubravka got 2, Sarr got 2, this is all on my bench, Mukiele got 2, Van de Ven on my bench with 23 points. 23 points on my bench. He outscored my bench boost score last week by 9. Just him. Van de Ven, I had no chance of playing him. There was no way I was going to play him. It wasn't even in my thoughts. So I'm not going to beat myself up too much. The only thing that was annoying was I spent all day thinking, please play Gabriel, because I don't want people getting these lucky road on points. And then obviously if Gabriel hadn't have played, Van der Ven would have come off my bench. So yeah, 44 points, but 23 points on my bench with Van der Ven alone. What a week that would have been. But no, only 100k Red Arrow. If you'd have told me once I played my wild card that I'd have gone up 3 million places, whatever it was, I would have been very happy. So it is what it is this week. First Red Arrow for a while, but we take it. Let's have a look at Nacho's points. Talk us through your points, my man. A nice little green.
Yeah, like similar to most people, really. After the all games apart from the Everton Spurs game, it looked like a really, really good week. And then Van der Ven destroyed everything, like Hibbo said at the start. But yeah, 51 points. I was in a spot where I really was debating making a few transfers. I was looking at bringing in Saka and stuff, but I ended up rolling my transfer in the end. Just didn't see enough going into that Arsenal game with the worries of Saka, and that was my main issue. And Enzo was just one of those players that I just thought could do well, but I just didn't see it for this particular week. So 51 points, rolled the transfer, small green arrow, double Arsenal defence with Raya and Gabriel. I think a lot of people are looking at Raya thinking, is he actually worth it? I'm pretty content with him for the foreseeable future. Rodon literally carrying this team with a 13-pointer. I mean, on the Friday night, when you get a 13-pointer, it just sets your week. It would have to be a pretty bad rest of the week to not get close to a green arrow at least. So beautiful from Rodon. Senesi with the 5, Tarkowski, as we said, with the 1. 3 midfielders, which is a bit unusual for me. Semenyo with 3, Bruno with 4, and then Dye with 2. But I don't know how Dye only got 2 points. Could have been so much more. And then, like everybody, forwards are just not firing unless it's Krupi Jr. it seemed this week with Haaland, João Pedro and Gyökeres. And my bench with a combined 3 points, which is 20 less than Van der Ven himself. So I'm glad I didn't bench boost, because I actually was planning to bench boost in game week 9 originally, but the Anderson injury obviously just caused chaos. So all in all, 51 points, small green arrow. I'm happy with the week.
And you know what? It's interesting because I'm seeing so many people saying things like Rodon, it's such an easy pick to go with. But there are also people that went with Goodmanson, who's been fantastic for DEFCON. He went off at 45 minutes because he got injured. 1 point, 12 points difference between him and Rodon this week. It's an absolute killer, isn't it? But if you can get it right, look at Alderete and Mukiele last week. It's the swings between the defender picks are really, really tough. And Hibbo, when we're talking about swinging, let's move over to you and your points.
So it's sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. So I blasted 3 FTs this game week. So I emptied the Hibbo tank. There's not one bullet left in the clip. So I did Gyökeres, Stach and Anderson, the Krupi Jr., Saka and Rodon, which sounds absolutely amazing, but I benched Rodon. So 45 points all out. So from back to front for the podcast, people, Raya and Gabriel combined for 15, Senesi with a clean and yellow and 5, Gavardiol with 2, Bruno had the DEFCON and 4, Saka and Semenyo got 3 each, and Reinders with 2. Haaland captain blanked against Villa. Dominic Calvert-Pedro blanked against Sunderland. And Krupi Jr., obviously, new signing, scored against Forest. Then on the bench, I had Sarr, Rodon and Alderete. So all on, happy enough for the process. Like I bought Rodon because I had 2 bench defenders that were out. So Anderson wasn't going to play, and then Alderete was basically concussion protocol. He couldn't play. He was basically ruled out because of that. And because there was doubt prior to the deadline about Gabriel, I thought, well, if he misses out, I need a defender. When Rodon scored the 13 points on Friday night, I was thinking, please miss out, please miss out. But look, Gabriel stepped up and got 9 anyway. So it looked good at one stage. Van der Ven put a big dent on it because his ownership is still kind of quite high in the upper tiers of the game, although not many managers, I think, on Twitter that I've seen played him this week. But look, I'm pretty happy and happy enough for the team, I think, going forward too.
I was going to ask this, by the way, do you just want me to message you what my moves are every week so you can copy me again? Or do you want me to keep it secret to have a little bit of a surprise for yourself? Or what do you want to do?
Are we really going to do this? Because,
you two are embarrassing, honestly.
Because the truth of the matter is, you weren't too keen on the Gyökeres, the Saka switch.
Don't know what you're talking about.
But then I think you were convinced of it from last week. But no, we had discussed this a lot in recent weeks. And it was a kind of move that if I didn't do it and didn't stick to my guns, I would have regretted it. Now, I made a big mistake last week. So obviously on the pod, I was talking about the move and I was talking about taking Gyökeres down the GUI. And this is my way of a public apology. Last week when we potted, I was priced out by minus 0.1. And it was only after the pod Andy more or less said to me, "You can't do those moves." And I checked and I couldn't do those moves.
I mentioned it on the pod.
You mentioned it on the pod and you mentioned it afterwards. And then I looked at my team and thought, geez, no, this actually wasn't possible. So I had to free up cash. So Anderson came down the road on. But then whenever that was possible, I thought, I could get Krippy this week and bench Sarr. And that turned out to be a good move. And we talked about a pre-pod, like Krippy got the goal. He could have scored more. Like he looks ex-lively. He's going to be a short-term pick who's going to be on around the Bournemouth team. But I think ride the wave and ride the price raises for while they're there, because he looks a decent option, I think, when Evan Nielsen's out.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be gone quickly. I think
No.
the goal he scored at the weekend, Evan Nielsen can't score, basically. The only thing I will say is I think Evan Nielsen gets the best out of Semenyo, and I've been saying that for the last couple of weeks, because I think Semenyo, he likes having that player up top that obviously feeds him in, and Krupi is not that player. Krupi is just a goal scorer. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, 4.5 is worth a gamble, isn't it? Let's have a look at some XGI and CBIT tables then, because this is the XGI for game weeks 4 to 9, so the last 6 game weeks. We've got Mateta, who's at the top at 6.80, being bought heavily this season, this week. We've got Haaland in second with 5.50. Then we've got Gakpo, Enzo Fernandez, Salah, Ismail Assar and Bruno Fernandes all up there making the top 7. We got Thiago, Voltemada, Ndai, Saka, Beto and Bumo, who is at 2.83, and then Jacob Murphy and Amad Diallo. Now, it's not often, Nacho, that I will bring this table up and talk about a player that's in the bottom half of this table, but I have to talk about Brian Mbeumo, because obviously you got a brace this week. United, three in a row. We've won 3 in a row, lads. We're back. He's obviously he's going to be going up in price this week. He got 2 goals, got a brace, looked very, very good. 2.83 XGI over the last 6 game weeks. If people miss the boat on him, is it that we should be investing? I mean, Man United, they don't have European fixtures. We've said this all season, haven't we? So it's not like we have to worry about that. What's your take on Mbeumo?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those sort of situations right now where I think we all kind of ruled him out because we didn't really know what this Man United team were going to be like. And Mbeumo of the last few seasons, at his price point right now in this United team, he should be in everybody's team, really. But I think we were all a little bit scared in game week 1 to go there. Bruno Fernandes was the safe kind of pick. I think now we're starting to see enough from Mbeumo to actually sit here and say, even though Bruno Fernandes probably has more routes to points from a DEFCON perspective, penalties as we know, but I think now we're seeing Mbeumo actually start to take out those positions like we saw in Brentford, actually being fed through on the last line of defence and getting those shots away. And the big question for a lot of managers right now is going to be, firstly, do you buy Mbeumo? And secondly, do you move away from Bruno Fernandes to Brian Mbeumo? And I look at the 2 fixtures coming up for United now, and they are both away, obviously, with their fixtures. Away against Forest with Sean Dyche in charge, 4-4-2 as we know, and then Spurs away after that. But I actually think long-term the fixtures aren't too bad for Man United. And like you said, no Champions League football, and they're playing against 2 teams who both have European football around these sort of times. So I think Mbeumo was a great buy, but I do think going into the Nottingham Forest game right now, I don't think you have to be desperately buying him. I think let another game pass. I don't see Man United scoring tons of goals against this Forest team with Sean Dyche in charge. And then you can reassess in game week 11 where Spurs, prior to the game, have to play Copenhagen in the Champions League. And then we can reassess and actually see maybe this is the time for Brian Mbeumo, because I'm looking at this really busy schedule with Champions League football. And I think United midfielder is going to be in a lot of teams. And I think he is starting to show that he is maybe as good value as Bruno.
Yeah, I mean, things are starting to click. With Cunha there, with Sesko there, with Bruno Fernandes still there, and obviously Mbeumo, Diallo, they're all making those kind of connections, which we just haven't seen in previous seasons. But Hibbo, if I had to ask you now, which United midfielder would you own if you wildcarded now? Would it be Mbeumo, Bruno, or Cunha?
I think if I was wildcarding right now, I would probably pick Mbeumo. Do you know there's a wee bit of price saving in going with him as opposed to going with Bruno Fernandes? And like, I think we know what you get from Bruno Fernandes. Like, you know, like the potential is there for DEFCON. He does have penalties, etc. He does play deeper now. Like, that obviously suits him okay in terms of racking up that DEFCON. But I think in terms of hitting that really big score from open play goal threat, like Mbeumo, I do agree with what Nacho has said. he's almost playing like a kind of utility second striker at the moment. Do you know, like Sesko's more a kind of hold up man, and those other boys breaking through from midfield, they do seem to be operating on the last line and giving that extra bit of threat. So I think if I was well cared in that week, it would go there. For people that hold Bruno, I don't really see him as a priority sell though. Do you know, I think he played very well against Brighton. Like, you know, like he was unlucky not to do a big score himself, and like we see this time and time again with Bruno. I think he put up like something like 0.6 XGI in the game. It's a kind of fixture that if he even gets an assist, he's probably touching that double-digit figure. And I know this is a topic of conversation for later on in the pod, but he's still got that potential. And it's whether the tide has turned enough with United in terms of their fixtures, and we discussed this last week, whether they come up enough in our opinions that you double in the midfield. Now, my only problem with Mbeumo, and we talked about this earlier before we came on air, is building too many players under your team that are going to go to AFCON. Do you know, like we're seeing now at the minute, and Day's obviously popular in the kind of FPL Twitter community, and Mbeumo's popular, Sar's popular, and you're starting to see people building these midfields that potentially have 3 players going away. Now, I think the counterbalance to that is, we get the free transfers in 16. That's grand, but I don't really want to be empty in my tank to kind of fix that. So that would be a consideration for me. It's not a move that I want to make at this point in time. They maybe have to reverse in about 5 game weeks, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So I think if you have Bruno, you hold, but if you were wildcard, I would say definitely Mbeumo now.
I think I'd agree. I think Mbeumo's the one, because he's cheaper as well. I think Bruno's loving the fact that it isn't just all on him at the moment. I think he genuinely is kind of liking the fact he can pass the ball to players up top that can do something. And obviously, you know, when you've got Diallo who's also on the right, building up that amazing relationship with Mbeumo as well, I think Mbeumo would probably be the one to go for. I know obviously he got the 2 goals, but it's the way that everything's playing. Cunha's the carrier, and Mbeumo's definitely the one they're trying to get it to. Talking about another team now, rather than Manchester United, Nacho, because I can't do that all night. When I look down this list, the player that massively stands out for me, because he is 8th on this list, he's putting up great XGI, he is 6.2 million, and he's already scored 4 goals this season already. I'm talking about Thiago here, by the way. We've been saying for quite a while now that the value does not seem to be in strikers. Thiago sat there at 6.2 million on penalties. Why is everybody not going with Haaland and Thiago and just you know, riding into the sunset with their amazing midfield and defence?
Well, first I think we all forgot about Thiago because of his injury last season. I think we saw him last season so briefly, looked quite good, had the horrific injury, and we didn't know whether he was actually going to return as any sort of Premier League standard. Well, he is proven that now. And secondly, we all thought really Brentford were going to struggle. I didn't see many people think that Brentford were actually going to hold their own, selling such key players going into this season, in particular Mbeumo and of course Visser. But fair play, they're doing a really good job right now. And I think, as you said, and we're going to touch on this a bit later in terms of the forwards, just how poor the selection is. It feels very much Haaland +1. And it does feel like at this price point right now with Thiago, and obviously European football not being a factor for Brentford and him being on penalties and guaranteed minutes. I'm looking at the 4 fixtures coming up. Palace away, not ideal, not a great entry point. Newcastle at home, around Champions League football as well. Then Brighton and Burnley. Like, it's not the best run of fixtures, but I really do think that Champions League football, European football, is just going to continue to have an impact on some of the squads that can't really stretch, like, for example, Palace. So for me, I think Thiago is a good buy. Would I be doing it this week away against Palace? Probably not. But I don't think managers need to be fearful this time round of going all the way down to Thiago. My only concern is that Mateta, as you can see on the list, is so good right now. If you go for Haaland to Thiago, you are missing out on that opportunity to go to Mateta if you were to have a Kripke Jr. as your 3rd forward. So I would be a little bit hesitant to have Thiago just as my 2nd forward.
Yeah, I mean, Hibbo, is there any world you can imagine Thiago fitting into your plans? Because like Nacho just said, I think the template is going to be Haaland and Mateta, and rightly so, based on the the XGI we're seeing here combined, it's over 12 that they've put up over the last 6 game weeks. Do you see a world in which Thiago could be your 3rd striker, or do you just want to get Calvert-Lewin?
Thiago's a good version of Calvert-Lewin. So everything that the Calvert-Lewin boys want, Thiago has. And like there was an element of doubt with Thiago about penalties because he took the first penalty of the season that Brentford had. Then Shari took a penalty and missed. But then in the most recent game, obviously, Thiago's converted from the spot. And I think Nacho made a good point about that. He's now confirmed on pens. Brentford are a much better team than what we fancied. Like Keith Andrews, I didn't really fancy him to do much of a job at Brentford, but he seems to have them fairly organised. And like coming after Thomas Frank was always going to be a hard job. He's done good. But I do look at those fixtures and I think, Palace away, Newcastle, then Brighton away. Burnley at home is a great fixture, but then they've got Arsenal and Spurs away. As a run, that for 6 games, that's quite difficult for me. And I do think that there's going to be a point in time in the future where I think Thiago will become a real option for us. We're going to look at him. He's going to be in a half-decent attack. He's going to be on pens and he's going to be on cheap. But I do think at this point in time, Nacho again had something in the head. Matera's like far too high in this table to be ignoring. And I do think if you're looking at who are the best strikers in the game, if we're talking about a dearth of options in that position, I think it is Haaland. I think it is Matera. And I do think we're going to discuss it later on when we talk about double-digit hauls. Muds are good. Defenders are very good now that we've added DEFCON, and we're looking at defenders this season. Like there's been fluke defenders like Mukiele, Alderete, Van de Ven, Rodon. But it's just going to show the potential that if a defender goes out, even a cheap one, scores a goal, keeps a clean sheet and gets DEFCON, it's the equivalent to a forward scoring a hat-trick, which is a bit crazy, really. Like it's a 17-point haul. But we're seeing that from these kind of cheap defenders. That's obviously not like a repeatable thing, like, because Rodon must have been very big odds. Like you're talking maybe 25 to 1, 30 to 1 to score a goal at the weekend. But it's still a possibility. But I do think at the minute, optimal, and if you're going to talk about the most effective way to play the game, I do think it's to have basically a bench forward, 2 playable forwards, 5 playable mids, and like options to kind of chop and change a formation. But maybe in the near future, Thiago kind of forces his way in, but it might be from game week 16 on.
It's what you just said, though, isn't it? If a defender can get a goal and get their DEFCON and keep a clean sheet, they're getting as much as a striker is for a hat-trick, which does seem crazy, doesn't it? I mean, if we look at the CBIT table now, so these are the last 6 game weeks, who's leading in terms of DEFCON contribution, so DEFCON percentage. Anderson is still top, which is impressive considering he missed a game, obviously. Chris Richards is up there, Van Hecker. They're all on 83% DEFCON percentage. Then we've got Alderete. The rest, quite a few are on 67% here. So Alderete, E-Steve, Mark Gahey, Kanate, Mukiele, Senesi, and Tarkovsky. Oh, and Van Dijk, sorry. And then we've got Agbedo, Chalobah, Collins, and Diakite, who missed out this week. But when we're looking at this, Nacho, the player that doesn't show up on this list is Van de Ven. Van de Ven has not been good for DEFCON. Got DEFCON this week. 2 goals away from home against Everton. Is he a good pick now?
Oh, this is just the classic case of looking at what's was scored the previous week and buying whoever was top of it. Because there's no denying Van de Ven has been incredible for goal scoring this season. But I just want to get up how many goals he's actually scored in a previous season, because he's currently got 5 goals, 3 goals this season, I believe 2 in other competitions. Yeah. He scored none last season, and to be fair to him, got 3 the year before. So he's already matched his best ever total in one season in the Premier League. And I just look at the fixtures coming up right now for Spurs in particular. Chelsea at home, I mean, we are pretty unpredictable, I'm going to be honest, but I would fancy us to get a goal. Then Man United, who right now are currently prime Barcelona, it seems. And then they've got Arsenal away and Newcastle away in game week 14. So I really do urge managers just to take a look at actually what's coming up as opposed to what happened with Van de Ven. And I do think if you're in a situation right now where you own, Senesi and Gabriel, then that third defender right now really has to be the one with the better fixtures, I believe, or at least routes to points with defensive contributions. Do I think that Van de Ven is going to continue this goal scoring? No, I don't. I'll put my hands up if he does. But for me, I think there are better defenders at a similar price point who have better fixtures, and I know it sounds controversial because he just got 23 points, but different avenues to points than that of just goals that Van de Ven is basically relying on, it seems.
I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate, Hibbo, and I'm going to say Have we been seeing anything from this Spurs team to suggest that Van der Ven is going to continue doing this? Because like Nacho just said, he's got 5 goals in all competitions to start this season. Gyökeres can't get a goal to save his life. Van der Ven's there as a centre-back getting 5 goals. I know he's not appearing on this DEFCON. He did get it this week. Spurs away from home are pretty good. At home, they're not so good. But away from home, they seem to be pretty good. How long do we ignore Van der Ven if this is what he's done so far this season?
Van der Ven's a strange one because he's still on a lot of teams. Do you know, for him to damage our ranks as badly as what he did on Sunday, he's like, and people are basically saying he's like the casuals pick, which doesn't look great for you, Andy, because you still own him. But
on the bench,
if I look, I think Nacho's point is spot on. Using points as a means of predicting points isn't really the way to go in FPL. We have to look to the future, and I think if you're looking at that next 3 and you just say the names like Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, are you going to be playing how many of those fixtures? Probably not. Then if you get a wee bit ahead of that, Fulham at home's okay, Newcastle away is not great, Brentford at home's okay. He's playable in 2 of the 6 at his price point. He's benchable, but for us, how much longer do we ignore Van der Ven? I think we can continue to ignore him. I think looking at this table and looking at primarily Palace, because people are now looking at their teams, I think, and they're looking at where are their issues. And I think for a lot of us, Reinders is an issue.
Yeah.
But we need money to fix that. So I think what you're going to see people doing is maybe taking a Tarkovsky or a slightly mid-priced defender down to maybe a Palace defender that's going to free up enough cash so that they could do something decent with Reinders. And I think because of the DEFCON that you're seeing from the Palace guys, because of the long-term fixtures, the only negative is maybe Richards' fitness, because he's going to miss midweek. Although Glasner had been managing him a wee bit in Europe anyway by leaving him out, so him missing out midweek isn't a big deal. But I do think, look at the fixtures, look at the teams that are going to go on good runs, and for me, that's Palace as opposed to picking up Van der Ven, I think.
I mean, I was going to go on to the double-digit haul bit, but I'm going to go on to the fixtures just very quickly, because you started talking about Crystal Palace there. They are going to be the most invested in team this week. Like without a doubt, people are going to be bringing in Mateta, they're going to be bringing in Sarr, they're going to be bringing in a Crystal Palace defender, whoever that is. Now, Lego Mane, by the way, has always been a legend. This is one of his graphics here to show the fixtures that people are going to be playing, not just in the Premier League, but also in European competitions, in English competitions, whatever it is. Now, you look at you've got teams like Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, Chelsea, Newcastle even, who are up here that have quite a few fixtures. But then you look at Palace, they've got all their fixtures, plus they've got, their European competition. They're in Conference League competition they're in as well. And then you think about Palace's squad. Surely, Nacho, we're all investing in Palace, but there's going to be some kind of consequence to this, isn't there? We're looking there, they've got Liverpool. We've already been told that I can't remember the keeper's name, but there's Camvox could be playing instead of Chris Richards. We're already seeing maybe there's a little bit of rotation, but Glasner isn't known for making a lot of changes because obviously he likes playing his strongest team. Mm-hmm. Do you see any worry investing so heavily in Palace?
I do personally. I think rightly so. They are being bought by managers. I mean, the next 5 fixtures coming up. They've got Brentford at home, Brighton at home, Wolves away, who just can't seem to buy a win right now, United at home, and then Burnley away. So on the face of it, the fixtures are great. But obviously for those that are listening on the audio right now, in between these fixtures, as we know, we've got the Carabao Cup tomorrow against Liverpool, which I just don't see a world where Glasner's just going to roll out a B team against Liverpool. I think this is a great opportunity for him to get another big win under his belt, really, in that game, especially the way Liverpool are playing right now. And then, like we said, we got European football between game weeks 10 and 11. We got European football between game weeks 12 and 13. And really, when you actually take a look at this Palace team, I just don't think they have the depth. Yes, Nketiah can play at times for Mateta. Yes, we could have somebody replace the defenders, but it's been pretty much the same defense each and every week. For me, I think the fixtures are good enough to invest in Palace, but I do think we need to be cautious that all it takes is one injury, like an Adam Wharton, for example, who's such a metronome in that midfield that I think it can just disrupt the entire team. I really think they're reliant on a few key players. So I think we can still invest, but I do think we need to tread carefully on maybe tripling up, just because they are one of those squads where the 11's fantastic, but when you start to go into the 13th, 14th, 15th player, I think that can actually disrupt the team quite a lot. I back Glasner, but this is a busy period for Palace. Maybe why I'm maybe not going to go triple up.
Yeah, I mean, Hibbo, is it just a case of those fixtures are too good to ignore, regardless of the fact they have got 10 games to play before the 9th of December, compared to, say, Man United, who have 6?
I think it's definitely a case that the fixtures are too good to ignore, because we're always going to look at this from a Premier League perspective, and we're going to look at that next 5 or 6 fixture run, which is obviously very good. Now, you're both making good points here in the fact that they do have like midweek competitions. Conference League going to be particularly testing. We've talked, I think, at length in previous pods about kind of Thursday, Sunday turnaround, which I'm not really in favour of. And like Palace is a team that I follow a bit. I've got some cards and so rare that are Crystal Palace. Now, in their last game against Larnaca, I watched this game, believe it or not. Their last game against Larnaca, they basically changed only 2 players in their starting 11. So they rested Richards, so Canvat played instead, and they rested Adam Wharton. This has been a familiar theme from Glasner so far in Europe, and even in the qualifier, they get under the Conference League where they played Fredrikstad, not Fredrikstad, but he doesn't want to go too weak. And like, I think we've seen that from his time at Eintracht Frankfurt, where I think he won a European trophy. It's that he places high value on it. He wants a bit of silverware. And I think the scenario that we could potentially see is that he doesn't rest a lot of players midweek, and that over time, coming up this busy Christmas period, these players are maybe going to start to get a wee bit fatigued. That could happen. It could have a knock-on effect in terms of injuries, but I think we have to look at the fixture run. I think we have to look at the XG for like Matera and for Sarr, the numbers that Munoz is putting up in terms of attack and output, the numbers that Richards and Gahey and Lacroix are putting up in terms of DEFCON. And I think you just have to back it regardless of that kind of midweek and see what happens. Because they are cheap options. Like you're not breaking the bank on Matera, you're not breaking the bank on Sarr. And I think the underlying numbers, they are there, the fixtures are there. I think it would be silly not to get on.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're talking there in length about Mateta, and obviously we've been talking already about the value of forwards, but he is keeping up with Haaland in terms of his XGI. Maybe not so much in the goals. He's got half the goals Haaland has, but obviously you'd be hard-pressed to keep up with the absolute robot that is Erling Haaland. But I found this today, and I found it really, really interesting. This is from FPL Crisis, Ash, who, by the way, he's bringing out some great stuff every week. So if you fancy giving him a follow, definitely do. I was chatting with him in DMs. He's a really nice bloke, bringing up some really good stuff, and he gave us this table. And this is showing the double-digit hauls from players so far this season. And his exact tweet was, so there's been 121 double-digit hauls in 9 game weeks across all positions, but only 16 from forwards, of which Haaland has 4. So if you take Haaland out, because we all own it, that means there have only been 8 other forwards. Sorry, not 8 other forwards, 8 other double-digit hauls from forwards. 121. If you take 4 of those out for Haaland, obviously, that's 117, and only 8 are forwards. Now, he's asked, why do you think so many continue to play 3 up front when the ceiling seems so limited? Now, midfielders, there's been 58. Defenders, there's been 43. I mean, that's mad for defenders. There's been 43. 6 of those are Sunderland, by the way. Mukiele. But why do you think this is? Like, Nacho, I think this is fascinating. I genuinely think, I'm looking at this, is it a combination of forwards are just poor this year? The way that teams are playing, it's all about set pieces. It's all about kind of, Slot's been saying it, hasn't he? Everybody's playing long ball all the time against us. Is it just that strikers aren't what they used to be at the moment in this season? It's not about strikers, because what we're seeing here, we shouldn't be investing anything in them. I mean, we're already investing 14.5 plus on Haaland. Probably that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you actually look at this table, I think we all felt this, but until you actually see the numbers, it just kind of like cements what everybody's been feeling. It's a great graphic, obviously, by Ash here. Yeah, damn, it's quite compelling actually to see only 16, 16 total for forwards, which is ridiculous. 58 for midfielders.
4 of those are Haaland anyway.
4 of those are Haaland, isn't it? And I'm sat here right now with Gyökeres, João Pedro and Erling Haaland. Yeah, I mean, there's probably people here who've done the research a bit more to really deep dive exactly why it is. But it's not really rocket science, is it? Like we said, the defenders have been massively over, like OOP really, with the defensive contributions, naturally performing towards bonus points. And the midfielders have just always been better than forwards, really. So, yeah, like you said, I think we were all getting quite excited about some of the new shiny toys in this league this year. Gyökeres at front, for example, João Pedro being a Chelsea player. But now that we're getting close to 10 game weeks under our belt, we can't really argue the numbers that we're looking at right now. And I'm certain at some points we'll see a swing. Sesko might go on a run at Man United. Gyökeres might finally learn to put the ball in the net. But I think this trend will continue, especially with defenders. And yeah, for me right now, I'm asking myself why I've got so much money in the forward line. I do think it's a question that a lot of people should be asking themselves, especially when we get into a period where maybe managers are looking to accumulate transfers and we get to the African Cup of Nations 5 free transfers and start to restructure squads. Where's that money really important? And it's not in the forwards right now, as it seems.
Yeah, there's definitely a movement at the moment, Hibbo, to maybe playing 4 at the back a bit more often. I think I've seen some managers saying they want to play 5 at the back, which I know we've mentioned before. But do you think that people are going to start playing a bit more 4 at the back, or 4-4-2s, 3-5-2s, things like that? Because those strikers, I mean, we're seeing it here. They're just not doing it, are they?
No, they're not. And look, I think this is an interesting table, and I think it's good analysis. And we've obviously had changes to the game in terms of DEFCON, and there were slight changes to the bonus system as well, which also kind of favoured those DEFCON defenders too. It's an important note that I think a lot of defenders have overperformed. Like we're looking at that Rodon goal, Mukiele goal, Alderete goal. Akpom maybe got a goal for Chelsea as well, which is probably in that double-digit hole. So that isn't a repeatable thing. Like that's not always going to happen. Like that's long shot stuff that's all kind of come on. But I think over all our pods so far this season, we've bemoaned the lack of depth in the striker position. And loads of people have disagreed with us on this. But I think this analysis kind of backs that up. What do people do? Do they make that switch down to having 2 playing forwards like a Haaland, Matera? Everybody's effectively going to have the same strike force if they do that. Krupe gives you a slightly playable option for the time being as a third striker, which I think is fine. But to touch on your question really about formations, I think you have to keep it hybrid. I think for many, many years in the FPL, we were programmed and they thinking we play a back 3 because that was just the way to play the game. It was the meta, it was optimal, and that was just what we did. Now, our brains are catching up with DEFCON. Our brains are catching up with the changes to the bonus point system this season. But I think the way forward isn't to kind of make this hard and fast judgment about we need to play 4 at the back, we need to play 5 at the back. I think what you need to give yourself is options. And I think by having kind of the Haaland, Matera, Krupe, or the Haaland, Matera, Obi, or Gui, or whatever way you happen to go, you can have 5 good midfielders, but you can also have 5 good defenders. Like if you're looking at our teams at the minute, we've got, say, Gabriel, we've got Senesi, people have like Anderson, people have Tarkovsky. You can have like Rodon, Mukiele, Alderete, and still have, like, it's viable to have 2-4 million defenders in a decent team this year. Whereas in years gone by, I would have said, oh, that's absolutely crazy. Like, you can't rely on these boys. But I think, you can because of DEFCON. But I do think having options and a kind of slightly fatter squad in the defensive end gives you that option to say, right, well, this week it might be a bit unconventional, but I'm going to bench Reinders. Now, I'm not going to do that at home to Bournemouth, but he's like a player that I'm carrying at the minute who's a bit of an issue. So in the week that my defender is a good fixture, and we're looking at the double-digit holes here for defenders, it does make sense that you can do that. And I think having the option to do that is grand, but don't kind of create this hard and fast rule that you're playing 5 at the back or 4 at the back. I think be flexible, be agile, and give yourself the option to do it without committing to a set way going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I wanted to bring up about this table, and it's mad thinking of the stats that we're seeing from Arsenal, Nacho. They're not the only team actually that have had 6 double-digit hauls from their defence, because Sunderland also have, which is crazy. Yeah. But when we're looking at it, Gabriel, Calafiori and Timber have all had double-digit hauls. Now, Arsenal at the moment, they've basically figured out how to win the league, haven't they? They basically figured out how to win 1-0 any game. They figured it out. They figured out set pieces. They're the best team for set pieces. They're the best defense. They're actually going to go after your team's record of goals conceded this season. Like, it's mad. They've only conceded 3 goals in 9 weeks. I was really tempted, and I was looking at it, to go triple defense this week instead of bringing Saka in, because looking at it, the value, as we're seeing, is there in defense as well. Why aren't we going for triple defence? For this best defence we've seen, they are 17th best for open goals so far this season. 17th best, and they are top of the league. Should we be going triple defence, or is it just that this has been the best so far and things will change? They've got Burnley and Sunderland up next. Is there any world where we're thinking they're just going to win 1-0? They're just going to win 1-0. Are they really going to be going for 3-4-0?
I like the idea of 3 at the back for Arsenal if you want to go there, but I think the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, what have they actually had in terms of fixtures? Now, they've had 9 game weeks. To include some of those has been Palace at home. We're all speaking about how we want to buy Palace defenders. They're a good team. They've had Fulham away. We know that's not a place where loads of goals get scored. They've had Newcastle away. They've had Man City. They've had Liverpool. So they've had a tough run. Man United away, of course. So I would make the argument that they've actually had a real tough run of fixtures in and amongst some nice games like Leeds, where I believe they won that quite comfortably in the end, and then ended up scoring 4 goals against Atletico Madrid midweek in the Champions League. And as you mentioned, the fixtures coming up right now, Burnley and Sunderland, I know they are doing really well this season, but do I just think Arsenal are just a level above all these sort of teams? Absolutely. And then Spurs, Chelsea, who are poor defensively, and then Brentford, Wolves in 16. I personally think we're going to see a shift. I think the numbers for Arsenal right now are not good, and I do think that they're in a position right now where people are questioning, rightly so, whether a triple up in defence is the way to go. I personally think I would rather at least have myself the opportunity to keep an attacker available. If I had a Saka and if I had a Gyökeres, I personally wouldn't be making 2 moves to move towards an Arsenal defender, because I see an uptick on these numbers offensively over this run of fixtures. I think they're good enough. I think even the tough teams like Spurs and Chelsea defensively are really suspect. So personally, I think there's going to be more goals scored by Arsenal.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there about flexibility, because obviously as soon as you get triple defence, that's it. You're kind of locked into triple defence until maybe game week 16 when we get the 5 free transfers. So, I do get what you're saying there, and especially with funds. I think funds are the tricky bit to move around again then, especially someone like Saka, who's not cheap to invest in. But FPL Crisis, Ash, thank you so much for this. I think it's been a really good one. Make sure you give him a follow as well, because like I said, some of the stuff he's putting out has been great. So make sure you give him a follow. Looking at also one of the articles that Scout has been doing weekly from FPL Mark, and this is the goals imminent table, basically, a bit like Joe used to do. And at the top here, we've got the strikers. These strikers over the last 4 weeks have had over 10 shots and have had less than have had a goal or less in that time. Gyökeres is top. He's had 12 goal attempts. He's XG delta of 1.56, 0 goals. Bruno Fernandes, 10 goal attempts, 1.54 XG delta, 0 goals. We've got Calvert-Lewin, 0 goals, 10 attempts. Enzo Fernandez, 10 attempts, 1 goal. Gibbs-White's also on here. Salah, 13 attempts and just 1 goal from Salah. Reinders is on here, 10 attempts, 0 goals. Dango Ouattara, Aronson and Eze are also on here. Now, Hibbo, as we're looking down this table, we've got the XA table we'll talk about in a minute, and I'll do that one with Nacho. When we're looking down this table, is there anybody here you're thinking, they are just due to explode in terms of FPL points, and either I don't want to get rid of them, or I fancy maybe investing in them?
I think it's an interesting table, and I think shout out to Mark at the FSF Scout for this, because it's well put together now. I think we have talked about what you do in terms of if you have 3 forwards. So people that have 3 forwards obviously have Haaland, most people have Pedro, most people have Gyökeres. And we are talking about that switch, and we are talking about long term. That could be a good move for everybody's team in terms of moving to a 2 striker formation. But I think if you're looking at Gyökeres, top of the shop, and you're looking at these next 2 fixtures in particular, Burnley and Sunderland, many managers will think this isn't really a priority move for me. And then you were looking at the last game where Saka obviously came off around the kind of 60-ish minute mark. Gyökeres obviously stayed on. So I would look at this table, and I'm not a Gyökeres owner anymore. I've obviously moved them on, but looking at the data here, I would be inclined to think, could I give him another week? Is it such a priority move? For people that have a really high EFT balance, they might say, look, I'm just going to make this move now because like people have 5 free transfers, so they might get it done. But for the people that have other fires like renders and stuff they put out, they might just think at this point in time, this isn't essential. I don't have to do that this week. And I think the data would back it up. But then, look, I think in these tables, like you'll get the assets too that can't hit a donkey's arse with a banjo, and Calvert-Lewin's one of them. Do you know, like, he'll be on this table now from now until the end of time. Do you know, like, Reinders is on this table, but he's like a man's risk. So, like, essentially, like, there's other factors and other context that we have to consider as well. As somebody a bad finisher, do we have to potentially move a player on because he's not going to get game time? I think that's a consideration. But I do think top of shop, Gyökeres, he's still a potential hold.
Oh, God, I don't know. I mean, Saka is top of the XA. So Saka, so to be on the XA in an imminent table, you have to have created 8 chances or more in the last 4 game weeks and got 1 assist or less. So Saka's top. He's created 8 chances. Foden's in second, Nacho, with 15 chances created in the last 4 game weeks with 0 assists and 0 goals. Absolutely crazy from Foden. We got Wharton, Gakpo, Coyote, Bruno Guimaraes, who has got 2 goals and 1 assist, but has made 8 chances. We got Salah, Cucurella, Zoboslai, Tavernier, and Bruno Fernandes. I wanted to ask you about 2 of these, Nacho, which is Foden and Bruno Guimaraes. Foden with 15 chances created. It does seem like he just creates chances for Haaland, and Haaland goes, he has a quick look and goes, oh, it's Foden that passed me that ball.
Yeah,
I'm not scoring this one. He's got a haul coming up soon, hasn't he? Surely.
Yeah, I feel like Foden is one that I've just completely missed the boat on in terms of the numbers here. So I'm actually quite shocked at what I'm looking at right now, but it's actually nice because we're all talking about how the teams are becoming quite template. A lot of people are going to the same midfielders, and Mbeumo right now is being bought by everybody, it seems. But Phil Foden's offering a great alternative for managers out there. And in terms of minutes, it looks like he started the last 6 league games, 90 minutes in the last 4. So it looks like he's back in Pep's good books. Just a caveat, doesn't mean that he's going to start all of them going forward. We know what Pep's like. Foden does something stupid. He's back on the bench. But it has been blanks over that period. So it all comes down to, what do you look at in FPL? Do you look at the numbers or do you look at the output? And most people probably listening to this do consider the underlying numbers, which have been fantastic over this time that I'm just looking at right now. The issue is the fixtures coming up are okay. Bournemouth at home and Liverpool home in the next 2. I mean, I can see goals in both of those fixtures. Then they got Newcastle away in 12, and we all know this. From game week 13 onwards, we're all praying that there are alternative Man City options available to us because the fixtures are just great until basically game week 19, it seems. So at 8.1 million with Phil Foden, I would love to sit here and say go buy him, but realistically to get there, you even go from a Bruno Fernandes who is selling Semenyo. And I think it's just that really awkward price point right now where I would love to own him, but I can see why he's only 4% owned in the game because he's so tough to actually squeeze into your team structure.
Yeah, he really is. It's the kind of one, though, I swear, if he gets a goal and assist against Bournemouth, for instance, people are going to be looking at those stats and going, oh my God. And looking at the fixtures coming up soon, he will be the next player to really take off. But then the only problem with him is he's pretty much the exact same price as Mbeumo, isn't he? So trying to pick between those two, obviously Mbeumo's just done the goals, so people are going to obviously try and pick him. But the stats, 15 chances created, 29 corners taken in the last 4 games, 12 successful crosses. Like, the stats are through the roof, but my goodness, if you can go with Foden after all the blanks as well, then fair play. But I do think like something's coming with him. Hibbo, before we move off this table, Bruno Guimaraes, there's a slight bandwagon with him. Slight bandwagon, not a massive one. 2 goals, 1 assist, 8 chances created. He's only 6.5 million. Newcastle fixtures are nice. Tough price point with him, isn't it?
It is tough, and I think like if we're looking, I think you have to consider the wider context of the options that are available in midfield. Do you know, there's a fair bit of depth in terms of the midfield pool, and because of that, it's probably hard to justify somebody like Bruno Guimaraes. I know that like a Baker from above average, like Baker has gone for, like Gordon. You know, so at one point in time, people thought like Gordon would be a good option. He's obviously on penalties. Newcastle have been a wee bit hit or miss, and like you look,
that
you
was
look this
high.
week, that was high.
Newcastle.
You look at this week, they've got West Ham away. West Ham haven't been great, but then it's like Brentford away and Man City. It's not the tightest fixture run in terms of Newcastle, and I would just think right now it wouldn't be the kind of midfielder I would be investing on, if I'm being completely honest with you. There's different options I think that offer a lot more for the price point, so it wouldn't really be for me.
Do you need to change how you're sitting? You literally Newcastle. He wouldn't be. My God, needed that for Pink Pony Club, mate. Bloody hell. Right,
I'll not be singing that again.
Let's people in the chat. Newcastle. So let's have a look at some projections then for this week and see how people are getting on. So comfortably top of the projections based on the percentage for winning, it is Arsenal. 2.12 goals projected for them, but they are not the top 4 goals that are projected. It is Liverpool that's still top with 2.28, 65% chance of winning against Villa. Then we've got City, 2.07 projected goals, 61% chance of winning against Bournemouth. If you were looking at this here, Hibbo, and I'm going to go to you. You can mention Newcastle at the bottom there, 1.72 projected goals against West Ham. Where are you looking this week in terms of priority transfers? I mean, Palace only 51%. There are 5-6 teams that are projected to do better than them, including Brighton, including Fulham, who are starting to get a little bit of love from the community because their fixtures are so good. Newcastle are above them as well, but obviously 1.86 projected goals. Would you say Palace are the priority this week with how good Brentford have been, or do you think it's someone else?
No, I do really think Palace are like a priority move this week. Like in terms of projected goals, they're sitting around 1.8 here, but like Brentford at home's good. And then we're looking at the longer term fixtures for Palace, which are obviously quite good, and the underlying data that we've seen from Mateta and Sarr. Like if you're looking, I think at the other main ones of interest, Arsenal, we all have a piece of Arsenal already. You know, Man City, we all have a piece of Man City. So our team should be fairly well set up for this week. The team that we don't have, again, is Liverpool. Do you know, yeah. Brentford did a bit of a job on them. Salah obviously got the late goal where he smashed it on, but, you know, 6 points, I think, in the end, like, it's hard to justify, like, Salah's money at the moment when, like, he's not really jumping off the page in terms of being an option. But, no, I think another one that could be slightly outside the box, I know people are maybe considering it with Rangers, is going for Manta. Do you know, you're looking at that 1.9 at home to Leeds. We've talked about him in recent weeks. He does seem to be one of the kind of more nailed options. But again, you're getting yourself on that kind of sticky wicket of, am I buying too many AFCON players ahead of this AFCON run? Like, you know, as far as I gather, he's Senegal. He'll be going to AFCON in maybe 5 or 6 game weeks time. So it's something to consider. But he's maybe a bit of a differential that could jump onto people's midfields maybe.
Yeah, he is. I mean, when we're looking down this list, Nacho, I did this last week and I said, is this a week to gamble on Haaland captain? And we were close. We were saying Semenyo sat there. Semenyo only got 3 points. It was the week to maybe go for it. People went Bruno. He only got 4 points. It was a tough one to go against Haaland most weeks, but last week it didn't feel too bad. But obviously the main contenders didn't do anything. Is this a week to go against Haaland?
Well, I'll tell you what. I watched Haaland's YouTube video not long ago, and the man is just a machine. Honestly, watch his YouTube video and you will never not captain him. The bloke treats his life like he is an absolute machine. And at home against Bournemouth, I just personally think it's another opportunity to captain him. I'm looking at what we have available to us right now. I know Mateta's put up good numbers. It is worth noting regarding Mateta that, of course, that one game that he had against Bournemouth has massively skewed his numbers over the last 5-6 game weeks. It's worth noting. But I just think we know where the goals are coming from if Man City do score. And I know it's boring. I think Haaland is the one. People are talking about Arsenal defenders, maybe a Gabriel, if you want to go there as a bit of an alternative captain, fine. But again, do I see enough for a reason not to go Haaland at home? No, I don't personally. I don't know what you two think, but I haven't put the armband off Erling Haaland, and I don't plan to either.
Yeah, I looked up a bit of history between City and Bournemouth have frustrated them at times, but City always put up good XG against them. So I think it's not the week to go against it personally. I don't know whether Hibbo thinks the same.
I do think the same. I think like if I was looking at this slate of fixtures, the one that would appeal to me most probably Arsenal, but they're away at Burnley, which makes it slightly trickier. But I do think there's going to be a week that one of these Arsenal attackers absolutely smash it. And I think whenever you get on to the projected player projections, every week in this, we're seeing Saka, we're seeing Gyökeres. You've looked at Merck's tables where these boys are kind of underperforming in terms of the XG and the XA. We also have the greater conversation about the lack of kind of open play conversion. There's going to be some week it's going to click for Arsenal. And I look at this week and think, if you were taking Haaland on, it would probably be it. But you would be doing it knowing that you're going in suboptimal captain. I would never captain Gabriel.
I was just about to ask that.
I would never captain Gabriel.
Why?
In a month of Sundays would I never captain Gabriel. It would have to be Saka.
They're going to win 2-0. And he's got a goal and assist like every game for the last 3 games.
But you can't count on that. Like
you can. I did it in
Saka.
In Champions
I think
League.
this week it could be Saka's week. I think.
Do you?
I've been majorly impressed with Saka since he's returned to the team, and I think he's one of these players at the moment because Arsenal do have better squad depth and options that they've had in previous seasons. I don't think they need to run him under the ground the same way as they did before. They can protect him, they can take him out, and I do think in the long term that's going to help Saka. And if I had to call somebody that's going to do well this week, I think it's Saka, but I wouldn't do it because I do think Haaland's the best option.
Interesting. I'm going for my Mukiele goal again. Right, let's have a look. Let's have a look at some community teams because, and I don't want to take any wind out of the sails of Nacho, but I think there's only 20 points between last and first in the Community League.
It's tight. We spoke about this. It is ridiculous. This team.
Hang on, can we do a high tight for Hibbo? It's tight.
It's tight. I can't hit those notes here, but honestly, mate,
not as well as you can.
No, but it's ridiculous right now. It's 529 points for bottom of the pile, which is of course the new com team there, and then top of the top is the OG com team who just can't kind of leave the top of the perch right now of 546 points. So it is mightily close. Looking at the actual teams, what they actually done, all com team here. No transfers, 40 points. Pretty standard week, to be honest with you. Nothing really to scream about. Perfect example here of the swing between Gudmundsson and Rodon. And it's just another reminder that you can do well in FPL, but you do have to admit that luck is a big factor. And a 1 point of a Gudmundsson and a 13 point of a Rodon, just there is no skill in that, really, is there? It's just a case of one done really well, the other didn't. And I'm a Rodon owner. I would love to sit here and say that there was skill behind it. So I'm delighted because the com team obviously failed this week, but my heart goes out to them usually, but not this week, of course. And in terms of the new com team, similar sort of situation. No transfers made, 39 points. And bench, a couple of yellow flags there, Richards and Alderete. But I think this is going to go anywhere. I think there's a great chance that we might see a new top of the table after this week. I'm back in Hibbo this week.
I do like how you went for it there and said there's never any skill in the community teams. I agree. I completely agree. Completely luck. Totally. They have finished top 20k the last 3 seasons, whatever it is. I agree. It's all luck.
40 of them managing the team.
So let's have a look at well done com teams, by the way, for a subpar week finally, which is let us catch up, because I was chatting to Matt and Helen who were in the OG team, and I think they were saying that they thought the audience was getting a bit bored. You know, they wanted to get us back into the game because the viewers were going down. So thank you so much for letting us do that. Let's have a look at some bus teams then. So this is my bus team at the moment. I've got 3 free transfers, 0.1 in the bank. I've got Raya and Gabriel who are playing Burnley away, Mukiele and Tarkovsky who are playing against each other, not liking that. I've got Saka, Sarr, Semenyo, Bruno Fernandes and Reinders with Haaland and Pedro up top, with Dubravka, Krupi, Van der Ven and Senesi. Now, I cannot do Pedro to Mateta. Mateta went up to 7.7. I had 0.1 in the bank, so I cannot do that move straight off. So I will be making two transfers this week because I will be doing Pedro to Mateta. It's just where I get the funds from. Now, originally, I was thinking Van der Ven to Anderson because that's what I've been thinking for a while. I'm hoping Anderson will be back for game week 10. He has 3 gorgeous fixtures for the next 3. So I was thinking Anderson is a pretty good move to be making. But the other thing I could do is I could move money off of Tarkowski, move Tarkowski down to Anderson, for instance, and then I've got some money to maybe do something with Reinders the week after. Because otherwise, at the moment, I've still got nothing I can do with Reinders. Like, unless I move him to Anderson at Forest, I've got nothing to really do with him. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Tarkowski, I'm not liking that fixture. I think Sunderland do well against Everton at home. I back Sunderland at home quite a lot. So, yeah, I'm not liking it. And if Van der Ven is going to be the next Marcus Alonso, I feel like I need to keep him. So, yeah, those are my options at the moment. I will be waiting because I feel like there's a lot of people that have gone for Mateta early. They've got a midweek fixture. He could play minutes in that and anything could happen. So I am. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. But like I said, I'm going to be waiting for a little bit till Saturday morning to see what I do. There's no early fixture this week, is there? There's no early Saturday. Is it 3 o'clock? It all kicks off.
3 o'clock. That's right.
Yeah,
mate.
I was going to say, which is weird considering what's going on with Europe. But there you go. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Nacho, talk us through yours because you do have Anderson.
I do have Anderson. And I've hit the holy grail of 5 free transfers. I think when I was deliberating transfers last week, I just thought, when am I ever going to get a chance to hit 5 free transfers apart from being gifted them for African Cup of Nations? So I thought I would just tick it off the CV, tick it off the bucket list, 5 free transfers, and 0.8 million in the bank. So I'm just balling right now. I can't lie. I'm absolutely balling this week. So just to run through the team. Double Arsenal defence, Raya and Gabriel, Tarkowski, and then, as we said, Anderson already. I'm so desperate for him to be available because I was fine with him being out in game week 9. Home to Wolves is just the one that you really want him in. So ideally, comes out and he's ready to play. Midfield forward, Reinders, Semenyo, Bruno, and Ndai. Front 3 of Haaland with the captaincy, João Pedro and Gyökeres. Now, of course, with 5 free transfers, I got to make a move. And the obvious one is doing João Pedro to Mateta, getting it done. Personally, I didn't want to go early on the move. I'm not foolish like some people. So I thought I would not do that. And I actually do think, controversially, we are going to see a slight improvement in João Pedro. It looks like we're going to see Delap back tomorrow for the Wolves game, which is massive. And I think, whereas Mark Gui is a completely different sort of profile to Delap, I think we could actually see a bit of an improved João Pedro in game week 11 onwards. Do I think that's enough to keep him? No. So my current plan probably is the boring route. João Pedro out, Mateta in, and then probably doing Reinders out to Ismail Assar. That would require me selling Tarkowski as well to free up some funds. So it's getting rid of some players that I kind of am happy to get rid of long term. The defensive pick would be the big one. I'd have about 5.1 million to spend, so I don't have to just drop down to a 4.5. I would love that to be Munoz, but unfortunately I can't afford him. But I think at least one Palace will come in.
Are you doing the same as me when you've got Tarkowski as thinking it's great when he's getting stuff, but when he's not, he's like an eyesore, isn't he? 5.5 million for a defender that's not doing stuff. It seems hard to justify him. Whereas, like, I've got Van der Ven sat there, 4.7 million or whatever it is, and I'm thinking, why don't you just keep him? Like, it feels okay. Whereas Tarkowski at 5.5 kind of has to perform, doesn't he?
Yeah, 100% that. And like we said, in terms of the defensive contributions, looking at it right now, he still gets right up there. He got 7 against Spurs, but that's a bit of an anomaly for him. I think there will be returns, but he's such an easy cash cow in a lot of people's teams, and I think rightly so, especially with Keane being available. If you do want to keep your Everton, it's an easy move out.
Yeah, or someone like Chris Richards, you can save $1 million, can't you? Which you know, sounds good. Hibbo, after me and Nacho were saying that we're very sensible managers and we didn't want to go early, talks about how you're a bit premature this week in FPL.
Right, so in a world of kind of voyeurism, I feel like I'm a breath of fresh air because I don't have 5 transfers. I don't have 4 transfers. I have exactly 0 transfers, and I've got no money in the bank. And that means one thing. I've gone early this week, so I had the exact money to do João Pedro de Matera, so I pulled the trigger and got it done. It's not a normal play for me with midweek fixtures, but the fact of being priced out, looking at João Pedro's performance over the last run of weeks since I owned him on Wildcard 6, he hasn't delivered. It's time to go, basically. So I'm hoping to kind of get lucky midweek. So just to go through the team from back to front. So I've got Raya and Big Gabby at Burnley. I've got Gvardiol, host Bournemouth. Alderete, he should be back from the concussion. So at home to Everton. Then in midfield, Bruno, Saka and Sarr all have favourable fixtures. Not so much for Reinders and Semenyo. Then up top, Hallen captain for the bus team and Matera finish off the 11. So then in terms of my bench, it's going to be Rodon and double Bournemouth away to Man City. I think overall I like the team, except for 2 spots. I don't like Reinders and I don't really like Gvardiol either. So how I'm looking at this as Gvardiol's still a big differential. You know, nobody has him in their team, probably with very good reason. But I think on that basis, he's good enough to hold in the fact that Bournemouth at home, if he keeps it clean, he could boost me up the rankings. Reinders is becoming a differential because he's effectively becoming a bit of a bad option. His minutes have started to drop off a cliff. His underlying numbers aren't great. But for me, I need transfers to fix this. So any move to fix Reinders means I have to take Gvardiol down. I've obviously used my transfers this week. So in terms of future weeks, it would mean either making a defensive transfer to drop Gvardiol down and having the money for a future change, or basically rolling the transfer next week. But I think all in all, I'm happy with how the team looks. Like I think if I had Enzo on there instead of Reinders, if I had Ndai on there instead of Reinders, the team would look a wee bit better. But I think it looks okay for Game Week 10, and I feel like overall I'm playing pretty well. And I do actually think the play was, if you were going to be priced out, I do think the play was they moved to Matera. I do think that's...
What a coincidence. What a coincidence.
I do genuinely. Like in your position, no, but like in your position, I think having to sell Tarkovsky isn't great because of the Sunderland game. Do you know what I mean? Like I think having Matera on there, if you had the extra 0.1 million, you would have made one transfer, but now you're kind of forced into making 2. I get why some people didn't do it, but I get why people did do it as well. It was, in my opinion, good play.
You've got a nervous week ahead of you, young man. You've got you wait. Friday, you're going to be in our group chat going, "Why did I do it, boys? Why did I do it?" It'll be another public apology next week. You wait. Be 2 in 2 weeks. It'd be gorgeous. Me and Nacho will be sat there like this. Oh,
but look at that team. There's no apology. That team's just a powerhouse.
Oh, so, yeah, no, on paper,
I think
it looks amazing. Only half that team will be playing
versus
next
the comp
week.
teams. I think Nacho could be right. I could go top this week.
Yeah, let's wait and see. I'm guessing that's because Croupy Jr. scores a hat trick and Mateta's on your bench. But anyway, let's have a look. You know what'll happen? Rodon will bloody score again. Right, let's have a look at some Q&As. And so chuck us in your questions. We'll answer as many as possible. We've only got a couple of minutes. I have managed to keep this to an hour and 10 minutes so far, which... I'm not going to lie, it's probably my biggest achievement of the season, which says a lot about my FPL season so far. So chuck us in your questions. We'll answer as many as possible in the next couple of minutes. Animation says, who would be your boys' best picks on a free hit this week? Ooh. So Nacho, give me 2 picks that you think are fun picks, not Haaland. Who would you pick as 2 fun picks on free hit this week?
Fun picks, I would go for Minter, and I would go for Ekitike.
Oh, hello, Hibbo.
I'll say Gakpo. And you need one more. I was going to say Manta. The Kuiper. I'm going to go for Raul Jimenez. Wolves at home on penalties. And I'm also going to go for... I'm going to go for... Do you know what? I'm going to go for my boy Mukiele. You're bottom of the Scoutcast.
I am as well. I just checked that. Full of Ham, who, by the way, earlier said, I've just watched Fulham play and they were awful. Keep Voltemada or do I bring in Mateta? Ooh, tough one. Hibbo?
Get Mateta done.
Yeah? And Full of Ham also says Raul Jimenez went off injured tonight, so maybe don't get him. Although Josh King scored. Josh King scored.
Wow.
Maybe go for him instead. Matthias Kangas. Oh, I thought I said Kangas Khan. Then I was going all Pokemon fanboy. Said, who would you sell first? Xavi Simons, Reinders, or Pedro? Nacho.
Jesus.
I would have Reinders bottom, as in less priority, because I think Xavi Simons to Sarr is an easy move, and I think João Pedro to Mateta if you've got 0.2 million in the bank. So I think there are more routes from those two players. So I probably would sell João Pedro to Mateta first, being on penalties.
Yeah. Who was it? FPL Raven says, do I, gosh, I was trying, it's not easy doing this. Saying, do I get 3 Arsenal defenders in wildcard 10, Hibbo?
I say no.
Yay.
Because I do think that there's a good depth in terms of other DEFCON defenders. I do like an Arsenal attacker. And I think like your weekend could be fairly ruined if like 1 goal basically busts 3 clean sheets at the same time.
Arsenal don't concede, mate. Arsenal don't concede. They're never conceding again.
Wait and see.
They're never conceding again. 3 goals conceded all year. Saying it now. You watch them lose 2-0 to Burnley now. Lyle Foster brace. Right. Thank you so much for all the people in the chat that joined us. I think we topped out at about 450 people, so thank you so much. Boys, thank you obviously for joining us as well. Hibbo, hope you enjoyed yourself.
I always do. And I'm enjoying kind of bringing like a controversial element to the closing. What about the fact that there's 1 game on Boxing Day?
Oh, I know. I was going to mention that earlier. It's horrible.
What is this shit?
It's horrible. It's disgusting woke Britain. That's what it is.
It is. It's complete utter woke nonsense because like my whole kind of Boxing Day was like, you know, you do Christmas Day, it's a wee bit intense, and then Boxing Day is the day where you kind of go, right, I'm drinking from 12 o'clock here, and I'm just going to sit in front of TV all day, and then you're like, what, 1 Premier League game?
And Boxing Day football's amazing as well. Absolutely amazing for FPL. Nacho, try and not, leave us on a negative note. Have you enjoyed yourself this evening, my man?
Yeah, no, I've had a lovely time, mate. Always a pleasure.
Good.
Yeah, hopefully 3 green arrows next week. That's all I ask. That's all I ever ask. So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. Nice. And thank you so much for the people that have been listening now. Thank you so much for the people that listen on the pod after, and also those people that log into YouTube and watch us after the fact as well. We appreciate each and every one of you. Right. We'll see you all again next week. Fingers crossed for some green arrows. Thank you so much and see you later. Bye-bye.